Hi, let's take a look at your new set of essays. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this topic? Let's see. The issue of the detrimental effects of metamorphosis in eating habits, where junk food takes over traditional meals, has grown in importance over the last decades. I strongly agree with this idea. This essay will demonstrate points and prove arguments using examples from the UK government and Harvard University. Okay. Um, this last sentence was okay. This first sentence for me was not as clear and not as easy to read as I would have liked. So look at it. The issue of the detrimental effects of metamorphosis in eating habits, where, okay, in importance over. So you've got all of these little phrases and it makes it very clunky, okay? All these little structural pieces make the sentence difficult to read. And grammatically, there are places where it's just incorrect. For example, the detrimental effects of metamorphosis in eating, like that was just wrong. So let's see if we can come up with a way that simplifies this sentence while keeping the meaning very clear. Okay. Let's see. Try this. The issue of our eating habits and the detrimental effect, our shift towards fast food away from traditional meals has grown in importance. I don't love it. If I was writing it, I might be able to do a better job. Something like that, just a shorter sentence, more clear. And then here's something else I wanted you to add. I strongly agree with this idea. How about this? I strongly agree that this has a negative effect on families, society, and individuals, because this is a really important part of this exam, of this question. Families, individuals, and society. You have to mention them. Okay? Can you mention them in your introduction? If you can, definitely do so. But you absolutely have to talk about all three of those elements. All right? So essentially what I'm saying here is that I wanted this sentence to be more concise, cleaner. And then here, rather than just saying this idea, don't forget that you're supposed to mention these three facets here, okay? Families, individuals, and society. Let's continue. To begin, there is ample evidence that changing contemporary eating habits, where traditional cooking is being replaced by mouthwatering convenience food, lead, if you mean lead, it's LED, lead to deterioration of health at, okay, how about this? Leads to deterioration of health at different levels, emotional, relational, and physical. It is not only because fast food is full of unhealthy ingredients like saturated fatty acids, carbohydrates, taste enhancers, or preservatives, and poor nutritious parts like fiber, vitamins, or micro and macro elements, but also due to the fact that impoverished nutrition is often is just a part of uh, a broader unhealthy lifestyle. All right, take a look at this sentence. Look where it starts. Okay, it starts all the way up here and it goes to the fourth line. So this is something I want you to avoid. Anytime a sentence gets into the third line, you really run the risk of it getting too complicated and grammatically have mistakes. Okay, so avoid this. You can still write a complex sentence in 2 lines, maybe hitting that third line, but here you've gone to the fourth line. And quite honestly, it was a difficult sentence to read because there was just so much information in it. Okay. Um, so here you had a list of things, and then you had this, but also due to the fact. So it was just, I wanted it more concise. Okay. So an extensive study by the British Ministry of Health showed that how about eating processed food more than twice a week results in a 66% higher risk of for diabetes in 10 years not 10 years observations period, in a 10-year observation, period. Why? Because 10-year observation is your adjective. And because it's your adjective, you can leave it in a straight form with no s, no apostrophe, and it becomes an adjective. Even better is if you had put a dash here between 10 and year. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that widespread overexposure to junk food might lead to a future surge in expenditures related to treatment of these medical conditions. Full stop here. Okay, so remember what I told you, that you have to talk about families, individuals, and society. Who are you talking about here? Okay, so that's my first question. Is this related to the individual? Is it related to society? It's not really clear. Okay, that's the first part. The second part is don't forget that this is not why is junk food bad? Why is junk food good? But this is, hey, we're moving away from traditional food. We're eating this traditional food less and less, and we're going towards this junk food. Okay, so it's not just why is junk food bad, but it's talking about this shift, this transition. So what does this mean culturally, in terms of nutrition, in terms of all of it? Okay, so that's what I want you to focus on here as well. Then you've got this, it's conclusively clear, etc., where you say might lead to a future surge in expenditures. How is it conclusively clear? I mean, you talked a little bit about this higher risk of diabetes, but from that you've jumped and you've had the last sentence in your paragraph make this kind of mental leap that I don't think we really saw anywhere. I mean, yeah, okay, the whole thing really talks um about health, but to then talk about, I don't know, I mean, maybe you could have mentioned something about what this means for our medical centers, or, how about our tax dollars? Like, more people getting sick means more funds must be used for to help the sick. And then you could say, therefore, etc. But I felt like you kind of went from point A to point D. You didn't really make that link. Okay? So what you can see that I'm talking about here is issues with task achievement. All the things I talked about are related to task achievement. And then, of course, you saw me correct a lot of the grammar as well. Not a ton, not a bunch of serious things, but nonetheless, I did correct some elements here of the grammar. All right, let's take a look at your next paragraph. Furthermore, it should not be forgotten that preparing meals together has an enormous bond-forming effect. Since the advent of humankind, it's usually one word, eating together was the best time to socialize without when. Recent research led by Harvard University has shown that only 23% of American families eat regularly together at least one meal per day, which was linked to higher delinquency amongst youngsters. Thus, it's possible to state that making food together may reduce the crime ratio. Okay, so this paragraph for me, okay, you're talking about families. That's clear, and so that's good, but it's underdeveloped. There needed to be more here. There needed to be more development, and maybe just organized a little more differently. Now, I also might take a look at this. Look how long this paragraph is, okay? And then in comparison, look how tiny this one is. It's only like 6 lines, whereas this is, geez, like almost twice as long. So that for me is a problem. But let's talk about what the problem was with this. First of all, what did you tell me in the beginning? You said, I agree with this idea. Which idea? That junk food is taking over traditional meals and this is a terrible thing. Okay, so let me make sure your central ideas are clear too, because that's a really important part. Coherence and cohesion. Let's see. It's being replaced by mouth-watering convenience food. It leads to deterioration of health. Okay, now you know what would have been good here? It leads to deterioration of health affecting both individuals and society. That would have been good rather than talking about this emotional relation. Okay. Because if you had said that affecting individuals and society, then you could have said it affects the individual because it leads to all these terrible things like heart disease, cholesterol, etc. But it affects society because then we have a society of sick people, and then taxpayers are stuck paying the bills for all of these medical issues. Okay, so that would have been a better way to do this. And then you could say that, therefore, we can see that this shift away from healthier, more traditional meals and towards these fattier, nutrition poor meals is behind this rise in disease. Okay, so something like that for me would have been better. Then let's see. You said again. I just want to remember what you said. I agree with this idea. Okay. Here, I wanted it clearer that you were talking about families. Okay, so rather than starting off your sentence like this, furthermore, which seems rather sudden and as if you're like following up on this idea from something else, which you're not because it's a totally new idea here, it should have been something like the shift away from traditional food also has a negative effect on families. It should not be forgotten that preparing meals together has an enormous bonding effect. Okay. Um, and then I wasn't crazy about this. Maybe you could have said something else. Maybe you could have said, because you just talked about it was such a great way to socialize. Instead of saying this piece of research, you could have said, in contrast, today, more and more families are eating alone, uh, something they picked up from a fast food um, shop, um, you know, and that they then eat alone, reducing this amount of time to bond. And not only that, but I'm also going to say something else. It also reduces culinary tradition. Okay, this idea of recipes being handed down from generation to generation. And so it also affects society too, in a way, if you think about it. Okay, but rather than talking about this, I think it would have made a lot more sense to show this contrast that, hey, this is what we used to do when we were eating traditional foods, but now it's really like every person in the family runs to get a sandwich, a burger, a falafel, or, whatever. Okay, and so these bonds are lost. So that's what you needed to focus on here. It would have flowed better and it would have made more sense and it would have developed your argument better. Okay? All right. So, from the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that consumption of takeaway food has a destructive impact on society. Remember, not just society, but families and individuals as well. Okay? It is believed that governments should adequately face this growing issue in the near future, not the nearest future. All right, so you've got the right idea, but there were some things that I wanted you to work on, primarily in terms of task achievement. That for me was the weak area in this essay. Um, and then, of course, remember what I told you here. You needed a topic sentence, which made it clearer what the topic was, and that's going to help your coherence and cohesion as well. Okay, so let's take a look now at your task one. Shoes. Okay, fine. So the given graph depicts the amount of two, I don't know why you call them apparent. So the depicts the amount of two shoe type sales that took place in 2018 in 9 European countries. Good, you named them. That was good. Fine. Figures are presented in thousands. Great. The key observation is that Belgium had marginal sales with an S of brown leather shoes, while in Hungary there was the highest number of sold footwear. Okay, fine. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor though. When you're writing these task ones, please include the image. Just copy and paste it right here so that I can refer to it. It's really important that I have it so I can make comments and tell you, give you some feedback. Okay. So, fine. Firstly, it is noteworthy that in Germany, Poland, and France, there were sold twice as many. Grammar here is an issue. So it is noteworthy that in Germany, Poland, and France, twice as many brown leather shoes were sold as black ones. Not this. Hold on. 130,000, 140,000. All right, at 130,000, 140,000, and 70,000 respectively. The respectively goes at the end. Okay, so you're talking about brown leather shoes. Fine. Secondly, in the UK, Hungary, and Italy, there was a slight prevalence of black leather shoe sales with the difference between these two types of footwear oscillating around 20,000. I don't like the word oscillating, it's incorrect here. Thirdly, in Ireland and Holland, a similar level of distinction was noted, though in reverse direction. Okay. Around 20,000 or more brown leather shoes were purchased than black. Okay, at 100,000 and 80,000 respectively. All right, respectively goes to the end. Remarkably, Belgium is the country with the lowest sales of brown leather shoes, with figures around 5,000. Okay, so the first thing I want to see is if you mentioned all 9 countries by name. It looks like you did, but I just want to double check. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Did you miss something? I'm not sure. I feel like you missed Poland, but maybe I missed it, which is possible. Let's see. Hungary and Italy. I mean, it's not a big deal because you mentioned them all here, so it's not really a huge tragedy. But what I do want to do is I want to bring up this image so that we can look at it and talk about what you could have done here. So the first thing that I want to suggest is that after you write your introduction and after you write your overview, I want to suggest that you have 2 paragraphs for your details. You didn't do that. You just had 1 detailed paragraph. And I have to tell you what, I didn't really like this. Firstly, secondly, thirdly, lastly. It's as if we're creating a bulleted list of the main points here. And that's not something you really want to do. You want it to read like a report, like a well-structured, organized report, not like a bulleted list, firstly, secondly, thirdly. Okay? So there are a lot of different ways to organize this. I think some are easier than others. So what I tend to do when I write this is I decide to have a detailed paragraph about the black leather shoes separately, and then a detailed paragraph about the brown leather shoes separately. And then how do I organize my data? Well, I use these handy numbers here along the side. So I would start with the black shoes. Why? Because that's your highest number on your chart, and it's absolutely worth mentioning. These are the kinds of things that you want to emphasize, the highs and the lows. I know you did it with the low. So I would start off with the black shoes, and I would say that 3 countries sold over 100,000 black leather shoes, namely Belgium, Italy, and Hungary. Of these, Hungary sold the most at 135,000. Okay. Then, in contrast, the fewest black leather shoes were sold in France at roughly 30,000 shoes. Okay. The remaining countries, and here you can name them UK, Germany, Ireland, Holland, and Poland, all sold between 60,000 and 100,000 black leather shoes. And then you're done with the black leather shoes. Then you can move on to the brown. Then you can say, regarding brown leather shoes, 4 countries sold over 100,000. Of these, Poland sold the most at what is that, like 135 maybe? 135,000. Germany and Hungary sold around, I don't know, figure out what that number is. And then you could say Italy just sold just over 100. And then you also want to highlight this, that Belgium sold the least at like around 5,000, whatever that number is. Okay. And then the remaining countries also between 50 and 100. So you can do it like that. Maybe you can do it a little different so it doesn't feel repetitive. But that's how I would organize this. Okay. And you can see it's effective because you use these numbers alongside. They help you divide. They help you kind of separate the data. Okay. You're focusing on the highs. All right. And you're also focusing on these lows. And the rest of the information that is not so critical, you've just kind of smushed together, saying that they all fell between 50 to 100,000. And we don't really care about them because those figures are not terribly, terribly important. All right, so that's how I would approach this. It's not the only way. Obviously, there are a million other ways. Some people can do the brown and the black leather shoes together. It's a risk. It can be done, but it's a risk. But like I said, that's how I would do it. Obviously, there are other ways as well. Okay. So now going back to yours, I'm glad that you included the countries here. That was smart. You should have done that. That was good. But I think this needed to be divided into two paragraphs, and then you needed to select the data a little more critically, a little more thoughtfully, rather than just doing this firstly, secondly, thirdly. All right, that's my feedback for today. I hope you find it helpful. Let's see more essays from you, and I want to wish you good luck.